Alrighty, so we've been adding these collectibles, and we've been adding some properties to our player that we can view and edit, and that we can change using collectibles, but we have some issues. Right now, these properties, we can only see them in our editor. We want to be able to see our score on the screen. We want to have some UI elements. So we're going to create those in this lesson. This is all going to be all about creating UI elements. So UI elements are they're two-dimensional pictures that show up on our screen. Let's just create some so we can see what they look like. I'm going to go to my hierarchy, and every UI element is also a game object. So I'm going to right-click to create more game objects, and we're going to create a kind of game object called a UI, user interface. Let's add a couple just to play around. Let's add an image. Let's right-click the canvas. Let's add a UI text. Let's right-click the canvas. Oh, we have to, when we import text, we have to click when we use text, you have to click import text. I'm not going to do extras and examples because sometimes it causes errors and we don't need it. Okay, canvas. So you might notice that it's putting these weird big things up on the screen. We'll look at those in a second. Let's add one more to our canvas. We have an image, we have text. Yeah, you know what? Let's just look at that. So I have this big white square here. It's weird. When I press play, that big white square is going to end up in my bottom left corner. And I have the new text in the middle of my screen. Okay, so those are my two UI elements. They're two-dimensional, and they show up on my screen. No matter what I'm looking at, they stay in the same spot on my screen. It's going to say new text, and I have that image in the bottom left corner. Let's see how to edit these. So they don't exist the same way normal game objects do in my 3D space. They exist on this, the canvas. If I click on my canvas and I press F on my keyboard, I can view the canvas. And I'm going to switch to 2D mode. So I clicked this 2D button so I can view the canvas from the front. And now this canvas represents my computer screen. If I shrink my screen down, it also shrinks this canvas down. If I stretch the screen out, it also stretches this canvas out. And you can see there's some errors. So this image should be in the, for now, the bottom left of my screen. But if I shrink my screen down, that image falls off my screen. I press play, and we can see this in game, is I have this blank image, and if my screen is the wrong size, it doesn't stick on my screen. We're going to use this image and this text to keep track of our score. I'm going to put them in the top right corner. So I'm just going to drag them to the top right corner. And I'm going to resize this to better fit my new text. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I have my text in the top right corner now, but there's a problem. So that's my text. It'll say score in a second, but if I resize my screen, it's moving all over the place. I don't want it to happen. We're going to click on these UI elements. First of all, I have to put them back in the corner because I moved them when I moved the screen. And we're going to lock them to this top right corner. We're going to click on them. We're going to click their rect transform has this shape that my mouse is over. And we're going to click the top right corner. Now, these UI elements are going to be locked to the top right corner, no matter how I move my screen. So as I move my screen, they stay in place. That's what they should do. That's what they're doing. That's great. Okay, so now no matter what device players are on a phone screen, on a giant computer, this stuff will always be in the top right corner. This will be our score. And let's get a picture from online. I'll just go on Google Images, and I'll just grab a coin image. And this looks great. We're going to save that image. I'm going to go online. I'm going to look up background remover. If I use this image as it is, my guess, if I drag this image into my image UI elements, oh, I need to set it to a sprite. So texture type needs to be sprite. And now if I save it, now I think I should be able to drag it into, nope, it's still not working. Texture type sprite type is single. It's a full rect. it is filter mode is no filter. I'll do this again in a second for another asset. I just want to get this working. That is definitely a sprite. Okay, there we go. So now I have the sprite in, but it has a background. The background looks really bad. So before we move this asset in, we don't want to have a white background on it. Let's use a background remover. So I like Adobe's is great. I'm going to drag that file into the Adobe background remover. And then I'm going to download this and do that process a little slower. I don't want any of this. Let's just, where's download? This is a totally different new UI that they have, which is cool, but I just need the download button. Okay, so I downloaded it. Now I have the same image, but with no background. I'm going to delete the old one. I don't like it. And we're going to change the settings on this image to work for a UI. We're going to set the texture type to sprite 2D and UI. Sprite mode, this is a single sprite, so we're going to set it to single. And then filter mode, we're going to say no filter. Now we're going to apply that. We're going to unplay the game. And we're going to set this images source image to that sprite. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now I have my score UI. The only problem is that my score UI is not actually hooked up to my score in any way. So if I go over and I collect this coin, nothing happens on my UI, which is not ideal. So we're going to fix that. We're going to create some new scripts called UI code, UI scripts. I'm going to go to my scripts folder in my assets folder, and I'm going to create a new folder, create a folder called UI. We've created lots of folders already. I did that a little fast, but hopefully you guys can create a UI folder in your scripts folder. If not, go back, pause the video, watch what you got to watch, but we're going to create a UI folder. In this UI scripts folder, we'll create a mono behavior script, and I'll name it I'll name it score UI. Score UI. Okay, we need references to a few things. We need to say using Unity Engine.ui, because it's UI code, and we need a weird one. The text in Unity is done using something called Text Mesh Pro, and we need to tell the code that we're going to be using Text Mesh Pro. So we're going to write using TM Pro. Okay, Unity Engine.ui using TM Pro. That looks good. We need a reference to the player. So let's create a player controller player, and we'll make that public. And we need a reference to the text of this UI, basically itself. So we'll have a public, and it's called Text Mesh Pro U Game User Interface, and we'll name it Score Text. So this right here, it's a long one, but that's what our text is called. It's a Text Mesh Pro UGUI component is what we need a reference to. Okay, we're going to get rid of the start function, and what we're going to say is whenever the code updates, we're going to change the score text in our score UI. We're going to write score text dot text will equal score plus the player's score. That's it. This is our finished score UI code. We have a variable that references the player named player. This is a reference variable. We have a variable that references the text. And then in the update, so every frame of the game, the text is going to be set to the word score plus the number of points of score that our player controller has. Should be simple enough. Our player's score. We're going to drag this into the score UI, and we need to make sure to set those references. So let's click on our score UI, and let's drag in a UI code. So we have score UI right here. Now it has player none and score text none. We need to give it a reference to its own text component, and we need to give it a reference to the player by dragging. We could drag the game objects. We could drag the player. We could click this target and target the player directly and target this text directly. And I'm going to rename this text actually. I'm going to call it score text. But now our script has a reference to the player. It has a reference to itself. It's named score text. I'm going to change this image to coin UI image, which doesn't all have to be one word in this case, but that's what I usually do. And now I think we have a beautiful working score UI. We will do a health bar in the next video, but right now I have my score UI. You guys can put that anywhere on your screen. You could use different images. You could call it, instead of calling it score, you could say like, you know, seeds or acorns or, you know, blood gauge or, you know, bullets or whatever. You know, you could have any number show up there and display any number from our player controller properties using this lesson. So we could, for example, do a static health value in the exact same way. That just shows our health number on the screen. But in the next lesson, we'll do a health bar instead. That is going to be a little more complicated, but give us a beautiful health bar. I actually don't like that I gave these ferns colliders. I'm also going to undo that really quickly. Level design, terrain, nope. Ground decor. I'm going to select all the ground decor. Well, maybe the rocks should have, oh no, these tiny rocks. Let me look at these. What do these look like? Let's go to my scene. I'm just going to remove the colliders from these tiny little things. Let's go back to 3D mode. Let me look at this stuff. Okay, so we have one big rock and then mostly tiny rocks. We have 2, 3 big rocks. Okay, so let's just grab all of this. And none of that's tiny. I'm just going to remove the colliders. And then let's look inside of this. Again, same thing. I'm just going to remove these colliders. And then let's look in here. Same thing. I'm just going to remove these colliders. I just don't like the colliders on the decorations. So I'm removing them. This one has a big rock. So he can keep his collider. These other ones are getting their colliders removed. And the big rock has an extra collider. Okay, so I should have actually just done the whole thing all at once. So let's just remove all of these colliders. Nope. Remove that mesh collider. Remove that mesh collider. I'm just removing all these colliders because I don't like these tiny little things that are decorations blocking my movement. Okay, and the big rock has its own collider, so everything should work right now. Okay. Next lesson, we will do a health bar UI.